No, no, I've been here for several weeks.
Several weeks ago.
Yes, yes, but before I've been for 3 months in Malaysia for meditation retreat. Are you a student here or
Yes,
teacher?
I'm student. I'm
Alright.
PhD student here.
PhD?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm from Vietnam.
Alright. Did you already write your PhD thesis? Or?
I start slowly.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. What would be the subject?
So the subject I'm interested in is ultimate truth because I study the peace study.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So we learn about peace,
Yes.
but I don't want to talk about the peace that dually as a duality,
In a realistic way.
like peace and war. No, I want to
Uh-huh.
talk about the
Uh-huh.
ultimate peace that Buddha
Okay.
teaches. Yeah.
Which is Nibbana.
Yes.
Oh, that's very ambitious subject.
So I just start 2 months ago.
This is your first year.
Yeah, my first year.
And how long are the studies? 4 years?
Three,
3 years.
3 to 5 years.
Mm. Why here?
I just coincidence, like because I was in Hong Kong, and then my family moved here. Because my husband working like every 5 years he work in different country. So basically I don't go with him. You know?
Okay.
So during along the way I go with him. I do my own research, my own
Okay.
study, my own interested, and then
So now he's in Thailand.
yeah. So actually in Hong Kong I start to listen to one Vietnamese monk, and he happened to be a therapy monk.
Mhm.
So
Oh, that's
yeah, after I listen during the pandemic, before they start to like yeah, so I listen to him and I said, yeah, it makes sense
sounds
to
interesting.
me. Because before that I learned about feng shui, some feng shui.
Feng Shui.
Yeah, so before my listening to my teacher, I'm really into Buddhism, but I'm not really like seriously practice.
Okay.
And also I heard about mindfulness. But at the time for me, mindfulness is more like treatment, like a treatment, like the healing, like some people like. Because I learned also psychology,
Okay.
so they also apply like mindfulness in the treatment.
Yes.
So I
Yes,
was
of
thinking,
course.
okay, mindfulness is like for treatment, and then I learned feng shui, and then I'm like deep learning in fire element and yeah, and then I start to see how the karma function,
Mhm.
and I said, oh, how this,
Mhm.
and then I wish to have picture,
Mhm.
and then I read my picture online,
Okay.
and then
In Vietnam, the
he
Vietnamese
Vietnamese
man.
mom, yeah, he Vietnamese mom, and then he Vietnamese mom, and then and I was like, he gave me the confidence that oh, I have to practice, and then I will be like, yeah. I never had that feeling before, because before I go like amateur and then not quite serious. Yes, and then my husband moved to Thai. So,
All right. What an opportunity.
yes. So I continue my study here.
Oh, great. So 3 years, and you have classes usually on weekends, yes?
Yes, happy though.
Because I also teach education
Yes,
department here, and somebody told me that PhD students have classes on weekends.
yeah, I will understand, yes. So he was in Malaysia as well.
Ah, yes, there is this Sasanaraka Buddhist sanctuary near the city of Taipei.
So
And
for 3 months only like practice.
yes,
Oh,
yes.
so nice.
Yeah, it was very nice, good place for practice. But here there are many places as well.
You know, next week we will go for the retreat.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah,
I know.
you enjoy us or not?
I would love to, but then I was assigned the classes. And then, so,
In IPSC or
yes, yes.
I don't
No,
know
it's
which
not like IPS. It's
MCU, like
MCU, yes.
oh,
And I don't know what to do now because I would like to go with you actually. When do you go to the 24th?
24 we start.
I need to talk to the dean maybe.
So I thought they said that they will try to make everybody finish study before the retreat.
Yes.
And during the retreat, they do nothing. Oh, they have
But here,
the graduation.
yeah, but my students are from the education. I'm also surprised because I got the telephone that I will be teaching through the next.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Next ask.
Yeah.
Leave me here.
I will start.
Yeah, please start.
You sit here. Good morning. Yes, very, very
Please use the mic.
Thank you, technical staff. So good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here and to give a lecture titled Meditation and Various Kinds of Intelligence. And the lecture will be about something which is very rarely discussed when we talk about meditation, especially in the Buddhist circles, because in the Buddhist circles we usually treat meditation very pragmatically. So we learn specific meditation techniques, or we go for retreats. We study suttas as well, but with one goal and one goal only, and this is, of course, achieving various kinds of levels of awakening. So we know a lot about how to meditate. There are many different techniques. There are many different teachers and centers where one can meditate, but very rarely we reflect on meditation itself. What actually is meditation? What actually is happening in meditation, not just for us, but in general? What kind of processes are taking place during the process of meditation? And also the other thing which I very often discuss with my students in Poland is the philosophy of meditation. Should we have a philosophy of meditation, or should we just meditate? Should we just go to a teacher, to a center, and start meditating according to the instructions provided, or should we reflect first and think, what is meditation in general? What is meditation for us? And what are the processes of meditation? And of course, maybe it's not necessary. Maybe it's actually easier just to go to a meditation center and meditate and then achieve results we are supposed to achieve. There is this famous concept of the beginner's mind that is very popular, especially in Zen tradition, that was popularized by a book by Suzuki Roshi titled Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, or similar title. I don't know if I remember the title exactly, but the concept says, the less you know, the better, actually, because you don't have preconceptions. You just come, you just get instructions, you have trust into Dhamma, you have trust into your teacher, and then you just sit or walk or whatever activity a given meditation technique requires from you, and when you do that, you achieve your results. And probably this is very wise, because it protects us, the people that meditate, against over conceptualizing, against thinking, against finding problems with meditation. We just come and do it. But on the other hand, I have met many meditators, both in the West and in the East, who kind of stuck in their meditation because they do not have a philosophy of meditation. They basically do not know why they meditate as they meditate, why they meditate in a given method, why they meditate in a given tradition. They just came and were given instruction and started meditating. And at one point, this lack of consciousness, this lack of awareness, this lack of philosophy of meditation may become an obstacle. Because when we do something, when we do whatever we do, it is good to have a kind of a broad picture, and also it is good to be clear about our motivation. So what could be this philosophy of meditation? I'm not saying that philosophy of meditation is some kind of theory, some kind of abstract thinking about meditation. I am saying that philosophy of meditation is also something pragmatic and something very, very practical. And that philosophy of meditation means that we know why we have chosen a given method, we know why we have chosen a given teacher, and we know to some extent the path of meditation we choose and how it will go in the future. So for example, to give you an example, for me, my philosophy of meditation is to meditate only by using natural means, by using presence in nature, by using direct observation of my body and my mind, and I would never go to using artificial means. And when we look at how people meditate, especially in the West, they use many artificial means. I mean, for example, music. For example, some kind of substances that help meditation, which is actually a big mistake in my opinion, but they do that. So they basically do different stuff. Sometimes they use mantra, sometimes they use what is called open awareness, sometimes they play some music to relax. And I am not saying that all these means are not good, but I've chosen as my philosophy of meditation to always refer in meditation to the things that are natural. And why? Because what is meditation? Meditation is learning about the Dhamma. Meditation is learning the truth. And meditation is learning nature. Dhamma is translated very often in many ways, but also is translated as nature. So nature, and when we research nature, we will realize, and I will tell you more about it during this lecture, we will realize that nature has its own rhythm. Nature has its own patterns. The natural patterns are different than artificial patterns. So, for example, when we see a forest, this is a totally different experience than when we see the same forest on the picture or via camera on the screen of our laptops. The experience is totally different. When we deal with something natural, we kind of naturally exchange the rhythms of our consciousness with the natural phenomenon. So we and the forest become, in a way, attuned to each other, harmonized. And then in such a way, we learn Dhamma and we learn the natural law. But whereas when we use artificial means, the patterns are totally different, and there's plenty of research that indicates that that there is a difference. When we look at, let's say, a picture which consists of pixels, it is totally different than looking on the real environment, and different processes are taking place in us, in our brain, in our body, in our mind, and generally in our meditation. I am not saying that everybody should take as the person's meditation philosophy the kind of philosophy I've chosen, that everybody should use only natural objects of meditation. I'm just saying that it is good to have certain philosophy of meditation, a specific philosophy of meditation which we will not learn from books, and maybe we can learn the philosophy of meditation from teachers, but at the end of the day, it has to be our own philosophy. We have to consciously choose why do we meditate like we meditate. It can be music, it can be katina or any other artificial object, but we have to know why we've chosen this one rather than something else. And we live in very, very interesting times which give us opportunity to consciously choose. And we are not born into one specific area with one specific technique and method and with one specific approach, and we are not and we are having a choice among all these meditation methods and all the knowledge that we have today, including neuropsychological knowledge about meditation, which is very, very interesting. So that will be that would be the main area within which I would like to give you this talk, that the area of creating a specific philosophy of meditation. And then the title, as you can see, is Meditation and Various Kinds of Intelligence, because this is my hypothesis that meditation activates something in us, that it activates a specific kind of intelligence which is different than other kinds of intelligence. And this specific intelligence is an intelligence which allows us, at the end of the day, to do what is called in the suttas, seeing the Dhamma, to see nature, to see the truth, to understand the processes that are taking place. I will explain about these various kinds of meditation in a moment, and I will propose something, the concept which I was working on for many years now, the concept of open source intelligence. So let us proceed with the material. Okay, so I don't know. Can you read it? Is it visible? Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's the first thing. How we do not think about meditation. Usually, of course, I'm not saying that everyone is not thinking in that way about meditation. I'm just saying that this kind of reflection is rather rare among meditation adepts, and I'm saying it based on my very, very long experience. I've been meditating for more than 30 years in many places. I spent probably 2.5 years in various monasteries in Asia, but I also meditated in monasteries and centers in the West, in the US and Europe. And very often we do not think about meditation as something which is, well, I try to express it nicely, as I thought in a philosophical language, as I'm a philosopher. Meditation as something that puts us face to face in a therapeutic way with what is fundamental, because this is the real reason beyond meditation, I think, as designed by Gautama Buddha, that we are supposed to be put face to face with fundamental ways, which is Dhamma, and by facing this Dhamma, there is a process of transformation that is taking part in us, and that changes us totally, and that makes us in an irreversible way a totally new kind of people on many levels, as you know, on moral level, ethical level, on psychological level, on the level of personality, on the level of the character. But people do not very rarely think about meditation in such a way, especially nowadays in the West, and also here, where various movements like mindfulness based stress reduction, for example, have become very, very popular. People meditate for some other reasons. People meditate to relax. People meditate to get to be more healthy. People meditate to to be more efficient and more creative. So, for example, meditation becomes more and more popular in big corporations where it used to kind of increase the productivity of the people that work there. And very, very often we forget what Buddhist meditation is about, which is this facing of the fundamental truth, which is seeing Dhamma. And of course, I'm talking about Buddhist meditation, but one field of research that I did that actually helped a lot myself personally to understand the phenomenon of meditation is compare Buddhist meditation to how people meditated in other cultures. And I especially I focused on ancient Greek and ancient Roman cultures, because they were the cultures that produced several schools of philosophy. And when you look at like a Stoic school, for example, Stoicism is becoming more and more popular as well. So when we look closer at this Western philosophy schools, we realize that they all had their own methods of meditation. And also, to our surprise, if we look deeper, we will realize that they are not so different than the meditation techniques that were proposed by Gautama Buddha or by other Eastern sages, like, for example, meditation in Taoism. So one of the things that is kind of universal for all seekers of the truth, for all philosophers, no matter if they lived in East or in West, and no matter in what epoch they live, but the common thing is that if they're seriously interested in understanding the process of life, what is life about, how to be happy, how to get rid of suffering, then usually they develop some method of meditation. The mere thinking and the mere writing about it is not enough. One needs to have some specific way of interacting with reality itself, of what I call attuning to the process of life. Otherwise, if one doesn't have one, the philosophy becomes, and it often happened in the West, becomes a kind of abstract speculation, but not something which will allows us to actually see Dhamma. And similar things happen in the East as well, where we had these schools of Buddhism that actually focused on studying suttas only without meditation. But so this is a natural human tendency. There are some people with the temperament to rather study than see directly, and there are people who prefer seeing directly. There's nothing very specific in this sense that would differentiate Eastern and Western ways. But meditative ways, meditative interaction with nature is present in both the geographical places. So when we think about meditation, we usually have this iconic picture of a person sitting cross-legged. Someone who is sitting cross-legged with back erect and doing his or her technique, for example, observing the breath. But and also it is very popular now in the West as well, this kind of presenting meditation. And if you go to a bookshop, to any bookshop in Bangkok, for example, and you look at all the books about meditation, many of them starts with such an instruction. In order to meditate, one has to sit cross-legged with the back erect and do something, which is of course justified when we look at the suttas, because in the suttas in many of the suttas, we can find a very, very similar passage that says about Buddha sending particular monks somewhere to the forest or empty hat and sitting straight, and as the suttas say, such a person should put his or her awareness in front of him or her and observe something, observe meditation. And when the meditation is properly done, that such a person, most suttas say, all suttas actually say, eventually will go through the cognitive process, for example, through the 4 jhanas or even 8 jhanas, the 4 jhanas and 4 arupas, and such a person will jhanas or absorptions, and such a person will finally receive its goals. But in the same Nikayas, in the same Pali literature, in the same suttas, we will find many passages that inform us that you meditate in any posture. We can find passages that say that about monks who achieved enlightenment, some stage of enlightenment, in none of the 4 classical postures, not sitting, not lying, not walking, but actually, well, there's this case of one of the major Buddhist students who achieved enlightenment while putting himself into bed. So position is not essential for meditation. It may be important, and from my practice, I conclude that a good position can facilitate the process of meditation, but it's not essential. What is essential for meditation is a specific work done by mind. And the work that is done by mind, which we call meditation, can be done in any position, not just in sitting cross-legged. And it is very, very important because, especially in the West, we are in a mass, we are quite naive about meditation. So we really think that in order to meditate, one needs to sit cross-legged. And this has a kind of bad effect, because naturally, when we think that we meditate only when we sit, when we don't sit, we don't even try to meditate, because this is not meditation. Okay, meditation is sitting. This is what we think. So it is important to realize that it doesn't have to be so. And this is a painting by one of the famous Western authors, titled "Philosopher Meditating," and you can see that this is just an old man sitting in a kind of position that allows our mind to be more collected, that allows our to collect the mind. And when we but it's not necessarily straight. It's definitely not cross-legged, but there is some kind of focus in this position, as you can see. And we could say that this is the essence of meditation: not to be distracted, to be collected. Especially we have this discussion, this debate in modern Buddhism, in contemporary Buddhism, about jhanas, about absorptions. Are they or are they not necessary in the process of awakening of our minds? And there are, of course, 2 schools, and there's the third school that says that that the jhanas may be used, that actually samatha and vipassana, collecting the mind and inclining mind to the insight into the nature of things, that they work together. And this becomes more and more popular. And one of the, I don't actually remember the author, but one of the recent books from the Thai forest tradition, one of the Western writers expressed it in such a way that after analyzing the suttas, the Buddha suttas, we can conclude that in order to meditate, we have to be collected. but we do not have actually to experience this one-pointed state as it was understood before. And before it was understood literally. So one-pointed meant one-pointed. It meant that my mind is focused on one exact point. So this is not necessarily true, and the debate is ongoing. So when I teach meditation, and what I would like to start with to explain to you meditation, various intelligence, kinds of sorts of intelligence, is that maybe it is good to make meditation personal. So this is the question on the second in the second part of the slide. Is there something, a piece of knowledge that is only mine, a result of my intimate relationship with the planet, my own direct discovery? So do we experience in the process of meditation a real insight? Real insight is not learned from the books or from the teachers. Real insight is something what we experience. It has to be personal. It has to be mine, because then it changes the geography of myself. It changes the way I perceive the world. If it's just theory, if it's someone else's insight, if it's taken from books or lectures, it won't work. It will be very interesting and potentially helpful piece of information, but it won't be wisdom. So when we sit, okay, I was a victim of the same superstition that we have to sit. When we start meditating, why don't we ask ourselves if what do we actually know, and to what extent the things that we know is our personal knowledge, is our direct knowledge, and to what extent it is just kind of theory taken from books or teachers or various lectures, and the theory is just repeating the same definitions, repeating the same words in our head and thinking that we understand. But this is not the kind of understanding that meditation wants us to develop. It is not developing a new kind of intelligence. It is just adding a new piece of information to the informations that we collect through our life and are proud to have. So when I was talking about the philosophy of meditation as that one possible way is to only meditate on the natural words, I did that with a particular reason. Because if meditation is seeing Dhamma, then opposite to meditation is seeing fantasies. If meditation is experiencing reality as it is, then opposite to meditation is experiencing artificial words, which are not natural. For example, imaginary words, and or the words created with in an artificial way. For example, a screen of a computer. And it's true that especially in Visuddhimagga we have this collection of 40 meditation objects, and one of the category of the objects are artificial objects created specially for our meditation session in an artificial way, but also in the same Visuddhimagga, the path of purification, by Buddha Ghosa, in the same text, we are informed that such objects can only facilitate in us a specific kind of insight, but are not sufficient to lead us to awakening. In order to be awakened, we have to have a direct contact with Dhamma, with nature. We have to know the secret of nature, the secret of Dhamma, which is which is revealed to us in reality, not in what I call empty representations, but in processes, in real processes. And some of the Buddhist schools understood it very well. One of them, for example, was the Thai forest tradition, of which I tell you more in a minute. And you know that initially the first phase of the tradition, which started towards the end of the 19th century in Thailand and Laos, and which the first phase sometimes is defined as lasting until 1957, the end of the 50s, because then the jungle was strongly deforested in Thailand, and the monks couldn't keep to the style of life they've chosen, nomadic style of life, wandering in the forest and learning directly from nature. But they understood that this is the quickest way, that it's different to go to the jungle and to become basically the part of the process of life, and to allow the jungle to have its impact on us, then meditate, let's say, in a monastery, or let's say at home within the four walls. In the first case, we don't even have to apply a specific method, because our teacher is the forest. In the second case, when we meditate in artificial environment of our homes, for example, we have to apply special methods, which is also effective, but not natural. And of course, of course, within the Thai forest tradition, there were means used in meditation which I would qualify as artificial. For example, repeating Buddha, but they were used mostly in the first phase of meditation to make the effect I mentioned already, to make our mind more collected. And then the very crucial process of awakening of the mind, of going through insights towards Nibbana, was taking place in nature. So let's forget for a moment the word meditation, and instead let's use the word paying attention. So that's the question. Have you ever had a lesson in paying attention, either at school or in some other environment, that some kind of teacher comes to you and tells you, okay, look now, how do you pay attention to the word? Because when you start using word meditation, this word already has specific connotations. It already brings in all the knowledge about meditation we've already had, all the books we read, all the Dhamma talks we listen to, and all the kind of imagination and fantasies that we have about meditation, because meditation seems to be something defined. But when we say something much simpler, when we say paying attention, we can kind of escape the trap of preconception about meditation. So it's not a lesson in concentration or a lesson in controlling thoughts, as often happens. I don't know about your experiences at your schools, wherever they were, but my experience at schools in Poland and then later at university was that we were supposed to do specific tasks. For example, when we wrote something, an essay, let's say, it had to be written according to specific rules. When we had to control something, we couldn't just write what our heart dictates us. We had to write, just maybe that will be simplification, but we had to write what the teacher wanted us to write, which is a totally different thing. And then this habit, and I'm talking now about my personal experiences, I've taken out from the school and I put it into meditation. So I didn't want to experience meditation as it is. I didn't want my mind to teach me about reality, but I wanted to experience what the teacher wanted me to experience, or what the books wanted me to experience. I wanted as quickly as possible to get enlightened. When I came first time to Thailand, it was 1995, a long time ago. I was studying at that time at the University of York in United Kingdom, and I came for my first meditation retreat in Asia. I had full of preconceptions. I got, I think, 6 weeks visa. So my plan was to go to a most strict monastery, that was Chonburi Vivek Assom, to get enlightened in 4 weeks. Then the 2 last weeks, I have time to go to the famous Thai beaches and rest a little bit. So that was my plan. And you can see how naive and how stupid it was. I was 25, so I had still the right to be stupid. But this was full of preconceptions that meditation is like any other activity, that you can do it in a specific period of time, and then you have to rest. Yeah, I mean, you got enlightened, then go to the beach, have some nice swim, have ice cream if it's cold, and then just enjoy yourself. So that was this level of naivety that can be sometimes a motivation for meditation. If you go to an average Western course of mindfulness, you can easily hear these words. You can easily hear the word concentration. Also in the Buddhist circle, you can hear the word concentration, which is now slowly replaced more and more by the word collectness, because they are two different things. Because concentration is focusing. Also, this is a very popular word in meditation classes in the West. Focusing is just trying to find one specific object and to focus on it and ignore everything else. But this is actually not the way to learn about relationship between various phenomena. And in order to see Dhamma, you have to learn this relationship. Or it's a lot about controlling. We are afraid of our thoughts. We are afraid of our impulses, and we want to control them. Just imagine how nice would it be to have an anger under control, always, to have sadness under control, always, just to dictate yourself, your emotional states and your emotional life. Then you would be always happy. And what kind of fantastic life it would be. The problem is that you cannot control your emotions, and you cannot control your moods by power. You cannot do it by forcing yourself to have only positive emotions, because this is not how things work. This is not how our bodies and mind works. You can control, if you want to use this word, if it's necessary for us, our moods and emotions only by one way, and this only way is by understanding the logic that is behind this experience, by understanding how the emotions come to be, how they last, how they disappear, by understanding that they all eventually disappear, and by understanding the relationship between emotions and the sensations in the body and thoughts, this whole activity, it goes far beyond controlling. It's actually not controlling. Understanding and controlling is something else. When you control, you cannot actually understand, because you keep something in an artificial position. You take something like under a microscope and you observe it. But when you understand what is going on, it's a totally different cognitive process. So analyzing something is another possibility. This is what we do at schools all over the world. We have to analyze things according to certain rules and to arrive at conclusions which are usually at schools all over the world. The teacher knows the conclusion, and the teacher is not interested so much into your process of analyzing how you arrive at a given truth, but is interested that you arrive finally at the truth which he or she, the teacher, thinks is right, or which the manual thinks is right. So this is not personal. This is not a real transforming knowledge. It's just accommodating knowledge. Also, the other thing is meditation technique. So there will be this school that says you should do just Vipassana, and only our kind of Vipassana, because this is the Vipassana that Lord Buddha taught, and it's the only way. Or some other school says you have to go through jhanas, you have to go through absorptions, and a real absorption, the fourth jhana, counts only when you are totally cut off the world, when you are totally isolated from all the impulses from outside. And I'm not saying that these two schools are wrong, not at all. I'm not saying that various ways of controlling our emotions or concentrating or analyzing are wrong, not at all. I'm just saying that all those means are not yet, including following meditation technique, are not yet, they do very often do not provide the kind of intimacy that is needed in the process of meditation if you want to really see Dhamma, because it has to touch us. It has to be intimate and personal. It has, if it's to be transformative. And very often it's just following a given technique. And why is that? I'm not a specialist in the cultural differences between people in the West and in the East, but I kind of know a little bit about the history of Western philosophy. And here you can find a passage from Descartes' Principles of Philosophy. And Descartes is perceived as the major philosopher who kind of created, or maybe not created, but described the Western identity, the Western psyche, the Western person. And I'd like you to analyze it in a while, but very generally, what Descartes did was saying that the world is divided into two substances, the thinking substance and the extended substance, the material substance. This chair, says Descartes, is an extended substance. It has dimensions, okay? It starts here and ends here. But our thinking is not extended, he would say. Our thinking it doesn't happen in space. It doesn't have, geographically speaking, a localized beginning and the end. Our thinking is a totally different substance. But what Descartes says, and this is obviously a mistake when we look at it from our today's position and our knowledge, is that the two substances, the thinking substance and the extended substance, they never meet. I mean, he says they meet, but in a very, very subtle way. But he says basically they are separated. They do not influence each other so much. So he says that the only true and real us is in the thinking substance. And this is the famous, I think, therefore I am. To exist for Descartes means to think. Anything else, any other parts of our experience are not essential for him. And of course, when we look at it, what he means by to think, it's not just the process of thinking. He would also include some kind of emotions in it, basically all our mental life. But of course, this is the very Western Christian concept of having a soul. So he says our center, our identity, what we are is in our mental process is somewhere within, and this within is a soul, okay, is our essence. And you can clearly see how different it is from the Buddhist teachings, which are about dissolving self and realizing that self is just a mechanism, very interesting and very useful and necessary if you want to survive in the world, but it's not real. It is just a kind of activity. And there is a way, a possibility to see through this activity, to somehow get outside of it and see that the self is an illusion. But this passage that I prepared for you is about the way Descartes thinks about the extended substance. So he says, for the first time in the Western tradition, he said that this is mechanical, that body is like a mechanism. He would say, for example, that animals, they have no emotions. He would say that animals are mechanical. You know, that this old kind of toys when you kind of have a mechanical, I don't know, dog, let's say, walking. He says the same about a real dog, that he has no emotion. The monk like this, the dog like this does not feel. It has no capacity of experiencing in a conscious way any part of reality, which of course is very strange for us. But I'm saying about it because it kind of defined for the centuries to come how people in the West see themselves, that they see themselves as thinking substances. And thinking later on, with some evolution of the Western science, become connected to the brain. So very often we think that our essence is somehow somewhere within the brain, and this is us. That our thoughts, our emotions, our mental life is just byproduct of some chemical changes or electrochemical changes that are happening in our brain, are basically located in our brain. So this has practical implications. For example, there are institutions and companies that offer people immortality, and the way to achieve immortality, according to these companies, and it's not a cheap service. You pay about $200,000 for such a services. Is that when you die, they basically put your body in liquid nitrogen, and so the body can be preserved as long as the medicine will develop to the point where there will be possible to transfer your mind, so to say, or your soul, if we use more Western concept, to a new body or a artificial body, and then in such a way you will live forever. And because it's quite expensive, this liquid nitrogen, there is a cheaper kind of service that says you don't really have to put your whole body into this refrigerator. It's enough to put your head. So basically, when you die, they cut off your head and they put it into the fridge in a very, very low temperature, waiting for the medicine to develop to such extent. So, well, in 100 years or 80 years or 200 years, they kind of promise they will do as long as it is necessary because you paid so much. And then they freeze your head and they somehow extract your mind from the head and put it somewhere. I don't know where, but in a kind of construction or a biological organism created by science, which can live forever. So especially with this picture of the world, meditating is difficult. And when we look at the practice at schools in education, meditating is totally foreign to the way education, traditional education works in the West, because traditional education, what is educated is only our intellect, because this is where we are. This is our center. This is our identity. The thinking process is important. So we learn how to think according to certain rules, and we develop only this kind of intelligence, which can be called intellectual intelligence. And you are too young to remember, but in mid-90s, maybe a little bit later or earlier, started this fashion for the writers of bestsellers to write books about various types of intelligences. I think it was, I don't remember right now who created the concept of emotional intelligence, but it was popularized by Daniel Goleman in his famous book under this title, exactly, The Emotional Intelligence. And only in the mid-90s of the last century, some, let's say 30 years ago, we discovered in the West that intelligence is not only about intellect, but it is also about emotions. That in order to intelligently navigate in the world, we need to employ our emotions, that the emotions are not actually us. Sigmund Freud wanted us to believe something wild, that they are a part of us which allow us to actually efficiently live on the planet Earth. That emotions are necessary for us to be efficient and to survive. And then, because this Goleman's book became bestseller and the concept of emotional intelligence became very, very popular, people started writing books about various kinds of intelligences. Intelligence, for example, social intelligence. Then spiritual intelligence appeared. Then ecological intelligence. And all this kind of intelligence were selling well, and it was like we naive people of the West were discovering new areas of our life as something intelligent, not as something wild, as something which actually becomes part of us and is not to be neglected because we only care about our intellect and thinking process. So the concept that I propose in my last book is open source intelligence, which is something which is much wider than ego intelligence or intellect, than emotional intelligence, social intelligence, spiritual intelligence, and all the intelligence that was created in those by those various authors of bestsellers. But open source intelligence is an intelligence which is beyond our organism. Open source intelligence is a kind of intelligence which is created between, as an interplay, as an interaction between human mind and reality. And it can be developed, it can be achieved, it can be deepened in the process of meditation. And I called it open for several reasons. One of the reasons is that it doesn't lie only within our mind, or our heart, or our body, our organism, but it is a feature of reality. We are intelligent, but only we cannot be intelligent outside of the environment that we live in. But there is this concept of when we finally consume all the resources, so-called resources that the planet Earth provides. We are, Elon Musk created, works towards it. We are supposed to go to some other planet, I think Mars, and live there. But if this concept of open source intelligence is right, we won't be possible to live on Mars. Even if technically it will be possible, we will lose our intelligence, because intelligence is created between us and the environment that we were born in, and that we are living in. So we will not be intelligent people anymore on Mars. On Mars we will be maybe intelligent and maybe not intelligent Martians, but not people. Something will change. Our intelligence will change. And if we move now to the meditation and how it wakes up this open source intelligence, there are two ways. There are two ways in which it is done. One, it is done in the environment, a real environment. This is possibly the simplest meditation possible, and this was the meditation that I mentioned already, was done by, for example, the Thai forest tradition. I call it nature-oriented practices. But when we look at the Nikayas and pictures from Buddha's life, we realize that the Thai forest monks, they actually had something to refer to, the Buddha himself and the way the Buddha. Don't worry about it. I know that it's probably not visible. I'll just discuss it very shortly. This is just a fragment of a book by Ajahn Lee Dhammadharo, one of his notes about meditation. I will discuss it soon, but for now, generally, this is the easiest way to awaken open source intelligence, which is the intelligence that meditation activates in us. Just to go to nature and just to be there, just to spend time there. Then it happens by itself. But open source intelligence also means that our mind is reaching out to some open source. It can be in our body, it can be in our own mind, but it's new. Okay, it's from outside of our old way of perceiving the world. This is I call it open. But let us look first at this classical way, close to the way the Buddha did it, and the way that the Thai forest monks in Thailand did. So you may heard, you probably know that their practice was based on so-called Dhutanga or Tudong in Thai. Dhutanga is a kind of 13 rules that they had to obey, that they had to observe in order to lead this kind of enlightening life. And one of the rules was that they were wandering in the jungle. They were avoiding staying in one place unless they had to. The other rule was that they can only have, this is actually popular Vinaya rule, that they only, you know that much better than myself, could have only three pieces. The rope could consist only 3 pieces, and it all should be from the recycled material. That was the case of the Thai forest tradition monks. So it was very, very, very ecological. The other rule says about what is the best place for meditation, and the best place for meditation, of course, is forest. But within forest, within the jungle, there are even better places. The caves are very good. Sitting under a big tree is very good. Sitting under a cliff is a very good place of meditate. All these instructions which we meet in the Thai forest tradition, they refer to a kind of open source intelligence. It is not equal. It is not the same to sit under a tree and to sit far away from a tree. As you can see, we are according to this philosophy of meditation, we are interconnected with the world around. And these are the passages that I've chosen for you. Some kind of, let's start with this. Some kind of trees make themselves quiet in ways we can see. We say that they sleep. So one of the things that the forest monks did was observing the natural environment. At night, they fold up their leaves. If you go lie under them, you'll have a clear view of the stars in the night time. But when day comes, they spread out their leaves and give a dense shade. This is a good lesson for mind. When you sit in meditation, close only your eyes. Keep your mind bright and alert, like a tree that closes its leaves and thus doesn't obstruct our view of the stars. So one of the ways to learn this, to learn meditation and to learn how to see Dhamma from nature rather than from books was to observe how natural phenomena behave. So the trees act in such a way, and we can observe it, and then we can apply this way of behavior to our meditation, and then this meditation becomes effective. The mind becomes confident. Again, what is confident mind? The confident mind is the mind that knows what to do. Okay, so this is very often a problem in meditation, that we do not know what to do. We arrive at certain experience and we are just overwhelmed by it, and we don't know how to proceed. It seems that this pedagogy of the Thai forest tradition is trying to tell us that when you go to the forest, when you go under a tree, you will be instructed by the forest step by step how to meditate. When you achieve a certain level of insight, when you achieve when you have a certain experience, it will naturally progress into a new kind of experience, and the knowledge will be provided by environment itself. So the mind becomes confident. Dhamma that you have studied, or even that you haven't, will make itself clear, because nature is the teacher. So see what Ajahn Dhammadharo writes. Dhamma that you have studied, or even that you haven't. And this is quite significant for me, because what he says is that it is enough to transport your body to the forest and just to be there, and the things will happen by itself. A kind of intelligence will start developing. You don't have to even study it. It is enough to be in the forest is enough, and some processes starting to happen. Living in the forest, you also learn from the vapors that each plant exudes. Some plants are good for your health, some are bad. Sometimes, for example, when I've been feverish, I've gone to sit under certain kind of trees and my fever has disappeared. Sometimes when I've been feeling well, I've gone to sit under certain kind of trees, and the elements in my body have become disturbed. Look again what he's telling us. He's telling us about open source of intelligence, that under certain kind of trees, the intelligence is getting deeper. Under another kind of trees, the intelligence is blocked. So basically, it is something in the environment that helps or just prevents our effective meditation. And look here. Sometimes I've been hungry and thirsty, but as soon as I go sit under some kind of trees, my hunger and thirst disappear. Hunger and thirst seem to be something within us. Okay, I am hungry. This is how we express it. I don't know if that's the same in your languages, but that's how we think. That I am hungry, I am thirsty. But what he's saying is that hunger and thirst are effects of our relationship with the environment. So sitting under certain trees can make hunger and thirst disappear. We don't exactly know what processes are taking place there if we look at it, if we try to look at it from the biological or psychological point of view. But what the monks from the Thai forest tradition are teaching us is the very, very close relationship with nature. This was their way of awakening and developing the meditative intelligence, which seems very effective. And now I would like to look at it from the point of view of the research. I've chosen 6 different research about which the Richard Law, the author of the book The Nature Principle, wrote in this very book. And this is an old book. It's been published, I think, at least 15 years ago or so. And after that, there were millions, tons, thousands of hundreds of thousands of new research that confirmed that when we place our organism in a natural environment, when we go to the forest, things start happening, and we can suspect that the things that start happening in nature are similar to things that are happening in a meditation as Gautama Buddha designed it. So let us look at several things that happen to us in the forest. The first thing, and this is just 6 researchers. The first thing, brain gets reset. 2 weeks in nature gives city people a new sense of calm, and I would like to direct your attention to the words that are in red here. New sense of calm, new sense of clarity, and increases their creativity. So look, it's not only that we are more calm in natural environment, but also we think more clearly. So we become more intelligent in this classical definition of intelligence, and even in this kind of intelligence to which the word was applied initially, intellect. We think more clearly, and we are more creative. Our creativity increases our ability to solve problems, and we do not know why. There are several theories that provide explanation as to why it happens, but they are not actually satisfying. One of the theories is the biophilia theory, which says that we are just keen to natural environment, and this is the best environment for us, and this is why all these fantastic things happen. The other theory says, which is called the attention restoration theory, it says that something happens to our attention in the forest or in natural environment, that it gets rebuilt, that it becomes again working well. So that would explain the clarity and creativity. But we are still, we haven't still produced a really good theory that would explain this research and much more research that came after. But look at the other one. 20 minutes of tree watching decreases cortisol level in saliva by 13.4%. So cortisol is something which is produced, chemistry produced by our body in the moment of stress. So it is, you don't even have to go to the jungle or to the forest. It is enough that you watch from some distance a line of trees, and this cortisol level will fall down. And what is the effect? Relaxation. Relaxation effect happens just by observing the trees. This was research done in Japan, 60 people, 24 locations. And of course, this 30.4% is an average. Let's look at other things. Being in woods leads to involving all senses, which activates optimal state of learning. Again, it increases our intelligence. So look at it. When we are in the office environment, or even environment like this, or even in your meditation sala, whenever you meditate not in a natural environment, you activate only specific senses, and other senses are basically used to very, very small extent. So the sense that we navigate in the world most in modern society is seeing. We are using, some research says that it's more than 70% of the information of the conscious information that we proceed is provided by the sense of seeing. And we know even from the ancient Western philosophy that the state of well-being, the state of intelligent being in the world is the state of harmony. So since nature or evolution created more than one sense in us, at least 6. This is according to Aristotle, and we follow Aristotle, but some contemporary scientists propose more than 6 senses. 5 senses. They propose some of them even 32 senses. But this is for another discussion. But the principle of harmony says if you have 5 senses, then use them to the same extent in a harmonious way. And when you do that, then you achieve the state of well-being. But in modern society, living in the office environment, in places that are air-conditioned, in places that are artificial, we mostly use the sense of seeing. And this is definitely not something which makes us happier. And it wasn't like this always. It is in the contemporary society, but we know from the research by historians and anthropologists that, for example, in medieval cities, it wasn't seeing. In the medieval times, it wasn't seeing that was the most often activated sense. It was hearing. So the medieval, I'm talking now about Europe, the medieval towns in Europe, after darkness, they were basically dark. From time to time, there was some fire, some light, but usually they were dark. So when you walk, and they were quite dangerous as well. So you had to use your sense of hearing often. You have to have it trained in order to survive, because otherwise you could be killed. If you lived outside of the medieval town, hearing some people approaching you could be the mother of life and death as well. So the sense of hearing was developed, but also the sense of touching was developed to a greater extent than today. But today we basically develop the sense of, we basically use as the main one the sense of seeing. Okay, let's look to the last 3 research results. 1 hour in the forest increases attention span by 20%. So our concentration or collectness increases in the forest. And then the 5th one is very interesting. When injected with a strain of a certain bacteria that lives in the soil, mice twice as quickly move in a maze. So again, intelligence is an open source intelligence. The mice in isolated environment, in a laboratory, so like people on the Mars, they are cut from certain factors from the environment, in this case from a certain bacteria, they become more stupid. And this is why I think that when we really go to Mars, we become very stupid there, because we won't have access to what positively influences our intelligence. Things like earthly bacteria that are present only on our planet. Actually, today, when there is quite popular this concept of 3 brains, so we in the West, probably here as well, so we do not think that we have 1 brain, but heart is also considered to be a brain, to be a center of intelligence, but also our guts is considered to be the third brain. So our way of thinking depends on the bacteria cultures present in our stomach, and they can make us think in a specific way. And the last thing was in a hospital in Pennsylvania. The sixth one was the very intensive research that lasted for years, and that was a research on patients in a hospital, two kind of patients after the same kind of surgeries, the same kind of operations. One of them were put into rooms where when they looked outside through the window, they could see the tree. The other group of patients were put in the room. When they looked outside through the window, they could see only a wall of bricks. So the first group recovered quicker than the second group. Also, the first group was the people in the first group were more considerable towards nurses, which is a problem in hospitals all over the world, that people are demanding to the nurses, which they do less when they can see trees outside. So you can see that the intelligence that comes from the outside environment makes us even better people. But look at this. So because we are healing quicker when we see trees every day, the factor of mobilization is being activated in natural environment. And now I would like to show you a list which you probably know. This is the list that we can find in Nikayas, we can find in Buddha's teachings, the 7 factors of enlightenment, or the 7 factors of awakening. And you know them. It's sati, mindfulness, dhamma, vichaya, investigation, virya or energy, piti, pasadi, samadhi, and upekkha. When the 7 factors of enlightenment are present and they are harmonized in us, they are balanced in us, then we achieve a specific state which leads eventually to awakening, to enlightenment. And look again at the words that are in red. Sati is translated usually as mindfulness, but there are new translations. So some of them is clarity. Dhamma vichaya very often is translated as intelligence or creativity, although the classical translation is investigating Dhamma, vichaya for investigating, and Dhamma, nature, investigating nature. Virya is sometimes translated as mobilization, sometimes as effort, sometimes as energy. And probably the most popular translation is effort, but it is something which makes us energized, that we are not sleeping. This is the factor that prevents sloth and torpor. Due to virya, we are in touch in whatever is happening in our experience. Piti, joy, this kind of somatic joy that you sometimes feel during meditation. Pasadi is more mental joy, so it's much more delicate. It lasts longer than piti, and it is not so intensive, but it's more subtle, more sublime, and eventually concentration, calm, and equanimity. And I would like to show you that all these red words, which are used to describe the research on being in nature, are also used, especially in newer translation, as words describing 7 factors of enlightenment. So it actually, what this comparison tells us is that actually all the 7, they are not all here, but equanimity, I could easily find a research that would confirm that in nature we are more equanimous. It says that, it doesn't say that nature will enlighten us, of course not. We have to apply specific meditative means, but it says that mere being in nature increases all the 7 factors of enlightenment. So now I put the same research of concerning human presence in natural environment and replace the words that were initially used to describe it with Pali terms. And you can see how they are similar and how we can actually consider as proved to large extent that there is some kind of open source intelligence present in natural environment that increases our chances of awakening because it strengthens the 7 factors of enlightenment. Of course, there are several questions that we can ask, and here are some of them. And I would like to put them without having answers to them, but we can reflect on them. Is morality interwoven into fabric of life? This refers to the research that shows that having trees outside of the windows in hospital made people more considerable and less demanding towards other people, especially towards nurses. So we are basically more pleasant to other people when exposed to some source of the open intelligence. Is awakened mind less simulating the world or not simulating it at all? This makes sense, but of course it needs some kind of proof or reflection. But it makes sense that what our brain produces is a kind of simulation of the world, and this simulation is in a way stupid. It's in a way fantasy. It's in a way a fiction because it doesn't reveal paticca samuppada, or what the Buddha described as what is translated as codependent arising. It doesn't reveal to us, this fantasy does not reveal to us the truth, the cause and effect. But if you go to the forest, if you go to the natural environment, you are met with real life, not with fantasy anymore. You have to be watchful and mindful if you want to survive. This was actually at the center of the pedagogy in the Thai forest tradition, that mindfulness was developed because if you stop to be mindful in the jungle, and they were meditating, for example, at nights in the places frequently visited by tigers, or in the places that were known as the places visited by ghosts, or there were many more dangers in the jungle. If you are not mindful, you won't just keep living there for a long time. So mindfulness became a kind of necessity. When we sit in the meditation hall, we have to, well, maybe that's not the good word, but we have to force ourselves to be mindful, because the mind likes to go away. The mind likes to go into fantasies. In the jungle, you couldn't afford having your attention in the fantasies, because very quickly you would become eaten or hard by some kind of circumstances. So it means that your mind is more awake, and it means that your mind, this is just hypothesis, your brain is not so much creating words of fantasy, but it's with whatever is happening, and learns from whatever is happening what is Dhamma and what is the chain of cause and effect, what is paticca samuppada. So that's the third question. Does nature reveals paticca samuppada? And then does nature fulfill the Stoic promise, the Stoic one of the school of Western philosophy, that conversion, which this is a term used in Western philosophy for a radical change, it can be compared to awakening. It means freedom from patience, or also return to the source, is inscribed into it. So various schools of philosophy and teachers and sages, including Buddha, they say, come to me, take the training under me, and as an effect, you will experience a radical change in your mind. This is conversion. This is change, a radical change. You become a totally new person, the person that is no longer suffering. So does the forest do that to us? And this is when we are with the Thai forest tradition. This is a kind of description by one of the Western authors, Fisher, who writes something like this: forest renunciants focus minutely on the interplay between nature and mind, and guarded against the defilements of the mind. So look, how can we guard against the defilements of the mind? And the defilements make us stupid. The defilements are an obstacle to our intelligence. So in the forest, your mind, your attention cannot so freely be deluded by defilements, because you have to be mindful, you have to be watchful. And interplay between nature and mind is something what is crucial in Buddhist meditation. And when we look at the pedagogy of Buddhist meditation, we will see that it all happens between mind, between attention, between perception and an object of perception. It is enough to look at the Satipatthana Sutta, and you will realize that this is a sutta according to which we assume more and more subtle object of meditation. First, our object of meditation is the breath. Then our object of meditation, according to the sutta, are the postures of the body. Then particular movements of the body. I turn my head, and I'm aware I'm turning my head. Then the elements in the body. This is all known as kaya nupassana, or awareness or insight into the body. So the process is that we give a certain object to our attention. When attention in a relaxed way can stay with the object, let's say the object is postures of the body. So when we walk, we know that we walk. When we sit, we know that we sit, etc. When we lie down, we know when we lie down. And the attention becomes more subtle, more intelligent, and we have to give this attention more subtle object. And this more subtle object can be, for example, the four elements: the earth, the air, the water, and the fire. And then the attention becomes even more subtle. So the Buddhist meditation, according to the classic pedagogy of meditation in Satipatthana Sutta, is a constant interplay between our mind and some kind of reality, more and more subtle reality. And this is the way how we developed our meditative open source intelligence. If it wasn't open source, it would remain in the same area all the time. No matter how long we would meditate, 2 years, 10 years, 30 years, our attention would be the same, and it could only perceive gross things like positions or postures of the body. But if the meditation is undertook in a proper way, according to the rules which are dictated, for example, by Satipatthana Sutta, then it becomes more and more subtle, that it becomes more and more intelligent, and it can see very subtle relationships between phenomena, up to the point of seeing Paticcasamuppada, which for many authors equals with enlightenment. When you see the chain of causes and effects, then you get enlightened. But this is also for another discussion. So it seems that in the forest, we are feeding our attention with plenty of objects and relationships between objects and processes around, which are very, very effective in making our attention more and more subtle, more and more precise. So it naturally makes this process of awakening happening. This is why he says about focusing all the time, the minute after minute, second after second, on the interplay between nature and mind. And what is the effect? The effect is, for example, destroying the illusion of the compact self. When we go into deeper stage of meditation, when we observe the postures, for example, the self, the feeling of us being separated is still quite big, okay? Because, okay, I am standing, I am lying down, I am walking. This is all happening to me. If we stop at this level, if we observe only the postures of the body, our self would be compact. Compact meaning would be in one piece. We would still have kind of imagination that the self is something stable, that we are the self, that there is I and me, as the philosopher Descartes would like us to believe. But when we start observing subtle realities like the elements in our body, but also outside of our body, we quite quickly realize that we are no longer in a world which is a space filled with compact objects, but we are in a world of processes. Well, let's just try to observe water in your body. There's a very good way to do it. Maybe if we have time, we can do a short meditation later on. But now I would like to tell you, when you observe the element of water in your body, which is has, for example, a characteristic of liquidity, it's no longer observing objects. It's observing processes. Water is not compact. Water does not have borders. Water is not stable. Water is not unchanging. We observe water in us. For example, we observe the one of the meditation techniques which is present in Visuddhimagga and is used, for example, by Pauk Sayadaw in Myanmar nowadays, is observing the water in a place where saliva gathers in your mouth, and then learning this feeling, this characteristic of liquidity, of moisture, and then observing the same liquidity and moisture in other parts of your body. Then you scan your body and you no longer see your corp or your hand or your head or your eye, but you can see the water element in your body. You can feel the water element in your body, and you realize how dynamic the body is, how it is changing all the time. You cannot, after some time of such a meditation, you cannot tell where is the border of your body, because it kind of gets blurred. And then you realize that you are not an entity, you are not a compact self, but you are a number of processes happening at the same time within the organism, and the mind interplaying with the processes. And then your awareness becomes more and more subtle. And then also, we know also from contemporary research that consciousness is not something stable, that consciousness appears and disappears. It seems stable to us. It seems that I am I all the time, that I was the same I when I came here some time ago, and now after 1.5 hours of lecture, I'm still the same person. And I was conscious all the time. I could see you, I could see the slides and be present with whatever is happening. But actually, my consciousness was switched off and on thousands, hundreds of thousands of times during this 1 hour and 30 minutes, and the same happened to your consciousness. So consciousness is more like a wave. It appears and disappears. It's more like a process. And only because our attention is not well trained yet, we are not in a meditative state, even if our attention is well trained, but not right now. It seems to us that this is a stable consciousness. So more and more research shows that awareness is not stable, it's not compact, it expands and contracts. It acts according to some rhythm. It appears and disappears. It goes out and goes to a center. It is changing all the time. And processes in the natural environment are changing all the time, also in a rhythmical way. Nature is a rhythm. Nature is not the collection of objects. Nature pulsates. That's how the things are. And if nature pulsates and our consciousness pulsates, then the two can merge. Then we can attune to the rhythm of nature. And this is, I think, this is my hypothesis, how meditation works. That meditation is actually attuning to nature. This is why Buddha says about seeing Dhamma. If Dhamma is nature, and he uses this expression, seeing Dhamma, it means that we get attuned to Dhamma, that we follow nature, that we know the rhythm of nature. According to Abhidhamma, the speed of the mind is much quicker than the speed of matter. So the mind is absolutely capable in the process of meditation to attune to the speed of the matter and to understand what is happening and to see Dhammas, to use the same expression again. So look at this. Our awareness expands and contracts. Reality, material reality, natural reality expands and contracts. The two can come in a kind of resonance. And this is possibly what happens when people meditate, especially when people meditate in places like the jungle. This is why I coined this concept, a new source of intelligence, open source of intelligence, that comes from the reaction of the organism to signals from the environment, and it's attuning to the environmental rhythms, and intelligence that could be called open source intelligence. And this is how I defined it in my last book on this subject, that this is a kind of intelligence that drives attention from the most stagnant states, such as auto-hypnotic catatonic state, to much more fluent situation. For example, states in which attention perceives the dynamics of elements in our body, or rapid dramaturgies of mental micro movements. As I said before, attention becomes very, very subtle, and it becomes seeing the world as a changing process rather than a collection of stable objects in stable reality. So, do you have any questions so far? Actually, we don't have much time left, so I don't think if I follow all the slides, but let's stop here and see if you have any questions. Is it obvious what I say? Or is it just a little bit controversial and you can question it? Okay, if you have any questions, just interrupt me. Oh, sorry, go ahead, please. I'm sorry, I don't know if in all the mic, please.
Because you mentioned about the benefit of being in the jungle, so I wonder whether the beach also have the same effect.
It a little bit depends on what you do on the beach. I think so. The jungle, I use the jungle as a concept concerning all the natural environment, because you have natural patterns acting in the beach as well. Actually, you can do very interesting contemplations on the beach when you observe, for example, the pieces of sand moving or the patterns of the waves that are presented to you by nature. So yes, I think that would be my answer would be any natural environment teaches us the natural patterns. Actually, there is some research about a relationship between what kind of landscape provokes best what is called mystical experience. And it seems that forest is very good in that regard, but also a beautiful view, vistas, especially when they appear suddenly. Imagine you walking in the mountains, in the forest, and you just leave the forest and suddenly a beautiful valley down there reveals to you. This is the moment when kind of people report a mystical experience, a kind of insight into nature. But as we can learn from the Thai forest tradition, when we sit under certain kind of trees, we feel better or worse. So I would say generally yes. Every natural exposing our organisms and our senses to natural patterns provokes the process of awakening. But if you are an expert, if you spend like 20 years in the jungle or 30 years in a cave, then you would learn particulars of the process, that there are better and worse places. In the pedagogy of the Thai forest tradition, they are clearly recognized. I already told you about them: cliffs, caves, trees, especially some kind of trees. Beach as well, I'm quite certain. This is why the sea fascinates people so much. Of course, not when you go to a disco at the beach, but the same holds true at the disco in the forest. So yes, that would be the answer. Yes, please.
I have some questions. It means, yeah, I see it. So there is a lot of benefit to live in the jungle. So since the animal can get that all of the benefits, because animals all the time, like animals they are staying in a jungle.
Yes.
So how do you think about these things?
As soon as you are human or any being born into this planet, you will get the benefit. You don't even have to try to get the benefit. It seems that nature is basically good, that we were born on this planet under this specific force of gravitation, in this specific environment, with this specific bacteria around, and all this makes us intelligent. So the robot would probably not get such benefits, but human being and any being could. But of course, it's not enough just to be in nature, because if that was the case, all the animals would be enlightened quickly just by being there. It needs to apply some kind of awareness, specific awareness. So yeah, this is why the Buddha's teachings they don't finish when he says you need to see Dhamma, but they are followed by very specific ways how to do it.
7 kinds of enlightenment, they are arising, no? Yes. So from nature, it means that animal can also get awareness, and then realizations, and then intelligence, everything from there, no? So as you mentioned now, so here you have a little bit of doubt about these things, no? That means the result of the research, they explain like that. So we can get a 7 qualities of awakening. So this all I get from the nature or jungle or forest. So it seems they can also get a 7 qualities of awakening.
Thank you. I think this research, this various research shows that nature increases the 7 factors, but not necessarily to the point of realization known as enlightenment. That there needs to be some conscious effort from us But also within the Buddha's teachings, we have the teaching of Pratyeka Buddhas, that were Buddhas awaken by themselves. And actually, there is one passage in Aguttara Sutta, Aguttara Nikaya, that says that that's at least one. Probably there are much more. I'm not I don't know all the scripts that says that you can be awakened without even meeting Buddha's teachings. So probably, if you are lucky, if some factors get together, you could be enlightened without ever hearing about Buddha or reading any teachings on an isolated island. But I think it would be by chance that all the factors of enlightenment get harmonized by themselves. If not, then you have to apply some kind of pedagogy, and Buddhist meditation is this kind of pedagogy. There's also this controversy and debate about how Buddhist meditation differs from any other meditations, and the most popular approach among Buddhist circles is that only Buddha taught a proper insight, that only in Buddhism we can find the three characteristics of reality as anatta, anicca, and dukkha, that is changing, selfless, and kind of suffering or stress, endowed with a kind of stress, whereas other traditions do not teach, for example, the truth of anatta, of non-self. I don't know if we can say so. Maybe, but you don't have to refer to other traditions. It seems that if you refer to the forest, for example, the forest as your teacher, Ajahn Mahabua said that the forest is your university. The forest as your teacher teaches you anatta in some way also. And the monks actually report that. And when we look at what is happening in the mind of the Thai forest tradition monks, we will realize that the process that is happening there is translating the personal into non-personal. That you realize that things do not depend on your will. They do not depend on how you want them to be, but they depend on some kind of natural law, natural processes. And at the end of the process, at the end of the pedagogy, when you spend some time in the jungle being mindful and working with balancing the seven factors, you realize paticca samuppada itself. Like you realize like that everything depends, the thing and processes depend on itself according to specific rules.
And then one thing is I would like to know, so in reality, there is two kind of things. So physical nature or mental nature. So in the sense of the meditations, which nature is very important you have to use. So actually we all know that the meditation is just a method to seeing the nature. So then see the dharma. Which dharma is very important we have to use in meditation.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if I understood intention behind this question well. I would say that we are working with our mind. We can incline our mind and attention in a specific way, and this is our field of meditative work. We cannot influence matter so much. So our enlightenment depends on the work that is done by mind, but mind has always an object actually classically Nibbana is an object as well. Yeah. So this is the other side of the coin, that there are objects, and we can see the mind can perceive, the awareness can perceive the objects on different levels of precision. And I would say that an object that reveals nature is necessary for the meditation to be actually effective. So if I'm standing now and I just remind something comes to my mind from my memory, some event that happened to me, 1 year ago in Poland, and I totally start ignoring you, and all my attention would go to recreating it and even thinking about it, that would not add anything to my meditation. I would not be wiser because of that. So in order to be wiser, I need to give my attention to something real, existing, developing, changing right at the moment. And this picture in my mind would, in a way, it would be in the moment, but in a way it would be a fantasy. So if I would like to increase my chances of enlightenment, I shouldn't allow myself to go into these memories, but rather, to make my attention to be close to, let's say, to my breath, like in Anapanasati Sutta. Then the breath can teach me Paticcasamuppada, whereas my memory not so much, perhaps. So it is not the question of mind cannot enlighten itself just by imagining. Actually, this is the obstacle to enlightenment, by getting in direct, intelligent contact with what's real. And this is what is basically an object of mind. So in a way, we can say it's outside.
So we have questions on the online.
Yes.
So please, whenever and the last day, you ask the speaker first.
Please.
Yes.
And the last.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to some questions about Paticcasamuppada, dependent origination. So the professor explained about the connection with the Paticcasamuppada and the meditation. So my question is, why should we study Vipassana and Paticcasamuppada together? Can you answer, Professor?
I think Vipassana is a method that leads us to realization Paticcasamuppada. So by using Vipassana, we kind of provoke a series of insights in us, and the insights that happen in us are getting us closer to a clear perception of Paticcasamuppada. So actually it's the same process. And I don't know, maybe the question was, should we incline our mind to observing Paticcasamuppada? Or it is enough to be present and to be mindful in whatever is happening? And I think when we look at it from the point of view of Satipatthana Sutta, when we have these 4 phases of training, the last one is Dhammanupassana. And in my opinion, Dhammanupassana is exactly this. It's inclining the mind to seeing Paticcasamuppada. So actually, that would be a part of the process of Vipassana, because Vipassana means insight, seeing with wisdom whatever is happening. And the effect of seeing with wisdom whatever is happening is perceiving the codependent arising, which is Paticcasamuppada. I think there are 2 aspects of the same process.
So, yeah, I one more question.
Sure, please.
So I heard, I have experience in Thailand, but with the meditation retreats, but I never heard about the Paticcasamuppada explain, before the meditation. So just practice.
Yes.
But we didn't, learn. So that's why, is it possible to practice Vipassana meditation without understanding dependent origination or Paticcasamuppada?
I think so. I think you're right. I can easily imagine insight into the Paticcasamuppada without hearing this concept before, because even the concept of Paticcasamuppada is just approximation, it's just a theory when we read about it. But it refers to real experience, real perception. And this real perception comes to be as an effect of balancing the factors of enlightenment. So you don't have to know about Paticcasamuppada. You could balance the factors of enlightenment, and you don't even have to know about the factors of enlightenment. It can happen by itself when the meditation unfolds and develops naturally after some point. So definitely, you don't need to know the theory. Dhamma is nature. Dhamma is reality. So it's not that Dhamma depends on theory. Theory helps us to create optimal conditions to perceiving Dhamma, to seeing Dhamma. This is how we use theory. But if theory did not exist, Dhamma would still exist and could still reveal itself in the process of meditation.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yes, please. Thank you.
Whenever Amara said that, Amara, I would like to ask question.
Okay.
Will you please?
Yes, sure. Please.
It's because earlier you mentioned about there's a chance that enlightenment could happen without ever listening to the teachings of the Dhamma. Teachings of the Buddha. I was just wondering, could you share the source? I already gave my email to the host.
Please, of course. There's one passage, one particular passage. I don't know. Okay, I'll try to find it in the library, and please send me an email.
Yeah, no worries. I will pass out my email to the host, so when you have a chance, will you please just email me that? Because it's very interesting.
It is.
All this very, popularity.
Yes.
The teachings of Buddha, so I'm very interested. So when you get a chance to
Of course.
I'm happy to receive it from you. Thank you.
Of course, it is very interesting. Just a short comment on that. It's very interesting that the commentary to this passage changes the meaning of the passage, because the meaning of the passage is that it is possible without encountering Buddha's teachings, and then the commentary says it is possible to become Sotapanna on mere hearing Buddha's teachings. So you see, the commentary is more religious than the sutta itself. This is how commentary a little bit alter quite often the suttas, maybe not quite often, but it happens, that commentary alter suttas by this kind of reference. I'll be very happy to find the passage and to send it to you, or to any of you, if there is a place, if there is a common email that all the students have access to. Or if I send it to you, I ask you to distribute to anyone interested. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you. I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
There's a question from here. I don't know if, please come here, because.
Fili Achan, 4 years ago, I had problem in my. So I am broken for daily life. I am very suffering in daily life like that. So I agree, leave my family, come to here to practice meditation. When I apply practice meditation in nature and foreigner, I feel happy, and I feel peace and energy in my mind very strong. So I am okay. So now, how to practice meditation when go past family and city and or in building and very busy for working. How to practice? Yes.
Thank you. If I understood well, this is a very fundamental question, and I don't think I can answer it. I started this lecture with a kind of information about the personal knowledge that we can develop, and that would be my answer. You have to have your philosophy of meditation. You have to have your intimate relationship with the process of meditation, and this is the most important. And then if you have it, you can do it to some extent in various environments. I think the relationship between us and our meditation has to be a relationship of love rather than discipline, because the thing that prevent us from effective meditation is our hindrances, and you do not have hindrances towards something, let it be a meditation, which you love, okay? Because love kills all the hindrances. Well, maybe not all, because it can be mixed with desire, for example. But I'm talking about this love we talked about, like metta love, friendship. So this is for me crucial. I wouldn't answer this question by offering some kind of specific techniques. I also think that people have different inclinations and different temperaments. And this is why this intimate personal relationship with meditation is needed, because you know best what kind of meditation will suit you. No one else will tell you that. And very often we are going to meditation centers and we just do whatever it's taught there, whatever any other people do. And we kind of neglect our own inclinations. Very often we are not aware of them. In order to be aware of our inclinations towards meditation and develop this relationship of friendship, of love with meditation, I think it takes years. It takes of many trials. It takes of meditating in various environments, with various people, in various places, with various methods, rather than following one particular method. If we look at this, at the famous masters of the Thai forest tradition, for example, because we discuss it, and we look at the biographies, they often were looking for the proper meditation for years, or for the teacher for years. They were wandering from place to place in search of a meditation that would click with them. And if they would know by heart, by emotions, by this feeling of love and friendship, if this is a good meditation for them. So just to summarize it, perhaps a kind of sensitivity. We should be sensitive not only to meditation and tradition and method, but also to ourselves and to our reactions to the methods. I can answer that only in such a general way. Thank you. Yes, I think that's pretty much the last question.
So, hello. So, first of all, I would like to share my some knowledge to Dada Bhikkhuni. So, Dada Bhikkhuni asked one question. May I not wrong? So, I think so. She is just in, no? So, which I called in, so more than none. So, there is one tantra for that, actually we no need to learn the Buddha's words, because there is one tantra. This is Silla Matin Rodok Nanichu, Nela Matin Chinguran settle, Tabla Matin Dichi Gunchin, Yamyong Tachipendent bishops. So there is one specific tantra. It can explain. So we no need to learn the Buddha's words. So, and then there is a lot of words. So I have to explain. So but today I have not that much time. So I just would like to share this tantra to you all. And then now my last question is, could you give us some specific advice to do the meditation for the beginner meditator. So in this 21st century, so because in this 21st century, it's just as we know, it's a very a mess. And then so if we cannot meditate in easy way, and then so you cannot find a meditate a place such as you mentioned now, and then for that cases, so what should we do, and then what should we apply in our daily life to do the meditation? So could you give me some? So thank you.
Thank you. So the question is quite similar to the previous one, and I cannot answer it fully, but I have some experience as a meditation teacher, and what I discovered several years ago was how effective is the elemental meditation, the meditation on the elements. Classically, according to the Satipatthana pedagogy, this is one of the latest stages of the Kayanupassana sequence. So you start with other meditations, but I start very often with beginner meditators. I ask them to meditate on elements, and my realization is that they develop samadhi very quickly from the very beginning when they meditate on the elements. And I have some theory why it is so. One of them is that they never did that. So elemental meditation is for them exotic, interesting. They put their attention into a new world. When you ask students to meditate on the breath, they think that they know the breath, and the breath may become very quickly boring for them. But when you ask them to observe the element of water or fire in their own body, as they scan the body, they very often get the kind of fascination starts. And they develop quite often very quickly in meditation. So if you didn't use this meditation, do not neglect it. Try it, because it may be, it's not a promise, but it may be very, very effective. And also it has philosophical explanation why the meditation on elements is effective, because it changes, it gets us to new reality. It helps to break with the illusion of self, because we do not see, as I try to explain, reality anymore as a collection of objects. When I see the world as objects, that this is the chair, this is this nice mug, this is a light, this is the wall or the window, then I see myself as outside of these objects. I see myself as a center that perceives the object around. But when I see the world, and this happens in the elemental meditation, as processes, as fluidity, as what is hot, as what is hard, then they are not objects, they are processes. And this reflects into the way I perceive myself. I start perceiving myself not as an object, as a stable me, but I start to perceive myself as something fluid, as something that changes. In the Rahula Sutta, I think that's the title of the sutta, Buddha teaches Rahula develop meditation which is like water, develop meditation which is like fire, and two other elements. And it seems that there is this concept, when you perceive reality as built of the processes, elemental processes, then the meditation will develop in a rapid way. My experience as teacher confirms it. But again, I would like to avoid giving a specific types of meditation to specific people and situations, because, as I said, it depends on the people. I think so. Thank you. Thank you very much, all of you here in this room. It is always a pleasure to see intelligent faces around. And thank you very much for all of you that were listening to this lecture online. And yeah, I hope we meet again in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Master. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Marcin.